Hmm. I hope this is working. Good morning, friends. Facebook is giving me difficulties this morning. So just going to stall for a moment and see if it actually comes up. And there it is. Now we're cooking with gas. Good morning, my friends. Good morning. And it is, well, for me, it's morning. For me, it is Tuesday, August 22nd, 2023. Almost fall. Hence the look today. I guess I'm leaning into fall for some reason this morning. But who am I and what is this? Well, this is PB Reads the Bible, and I am PB, Pastor Brian, pastor here at Christ United Methodist Church in Waynesboro. And this is our small group where we gather together and read from the Bible. I read from mine, you follow along in yours, or just listen. And then I share some stuff to try to open it up. And so we all have a better understanding of what's taking place in some of these passages, because sometimes they don't mean what we think they mean when we don't understand what's taking place at the time and all that stuff. And we are working our way through the book of First Kings. We're on chapter 10 of that. So we're getting there. When we're done with First Kings, we're going to jump right into Second Kings. And we're going to go from First Kings right into Second Kings. So First Kings has 21 chapters, I believe. Well, 22. Yes, I was wrong. 22 chapters in First Kings. So we're just shy of halfway through. Apologies again. Yeah, we are just shy of halfway through. So this week, I'm just looking, this is going to be it for this week when we're done today. That's going to be it for today, because Thursday I have a doctor's appointment, just an annual checkup, nothing to panic about, folks. But we won't be, it's going on at the same time, can't be in two places at the same time. Not yet, anyway. All right. So we'll go ahead and check in. Many of you have been following right along, or at least have been around for a few episodes. And so we have Romper Room Roll Call. Somebody called it. Nice. That stuck with me. Go ahead and let me know you're there. Say good morning or some sort of greeting to me, to each other. Because what we're doing is we're sharing life. We're sharing life together. And I see a whole bunch of you already doing it. And if you're not joining live, you can still share those greetings. I go back in and I look. Same thing for questions or comments about what we're doing, because I do go back in and check. In fact, I just checked this morning and noticed I had missed someone who had joined at a different time. So I see some there. Good morning, Shar. Great to have you with us. Good morning, Maureen. You're on time this morning. Wonderful, wonderful. Great. Good morning, Marcia, and good morning, Marilyn. Good to have you folks joining with us this morning in this small group. So again, when you since we're sharing life, whatever it is that's lifting you up or weighing you down, put that in there, and we keep each other surrounded in prayer, lifted in prayer. So speaking of prayer, let's okay. Somebody, John and Cindy are joining us on YouTube. On YouTube, Facebook is giving you trouble as well. I understand. Sorry to hear that. Sorry to hear that. But it's wonderful that we have this ability, and that we can join each other, that we can share, join across different social media platforms, and all at the same time. Morning, Bonnie. My good-looking cousin. So yeah, Facebook was giving me trouble this morning too. Hopefully it'll straighten out, but at least as long as it's working now, I'm not going to touch anything. But that's an option. Whenever Facebook is not working properly or giving you difficult, hop over onto YouTube. And as well as the recordings. The recordings are also there on YouTube as well as on Facebook, and sometimes they're a little easier to find. on YouTube. You just go to our page and click live, and you can see everything that we've done live is listed right there, most recent and right on top. And I believe Beverly goes in, I don't know how often, and puts them into different playlists so that all of the King's readings are together, which I believe is also helpful. I'm not sure how often she does that. Anyway, regardless, that's available to you as well. So this is great. Thanks for joining this morning. And again, put your questions, your comments, your joys, your concerns in the chat section on Facebook. Sorry, folks, if you are joining on YouTube, I won't see those until later. I might see some comments later if I'm able to go in, but YouTube takes a couple hours before that can happen. So if you are joining live on YouTube, send me a text. That's a much easier way to communicate with me. 570-351-1619. Facebook, you can use the chat, or you can send me a text. And keep in mind, if you put something in the chat and I don't answer right away or respond to it in some way, most likely it's just that it didn't show for me, because sometimes it doesn't show until I've noticed that. Sometimes it doesn't show until after I shut down, and then until after we finish our session, and then I go back in and wait a minute, there's more comments here than I had responded to. Before we get to our reading, since this is it for the week, we won't be doing this on Thursday. Let's give you a couple announcements. First of all, Saturday, the trustees had a meeting last night, and they want to have a party on Saturday, and they'd love to have some folks come and join our party. What kind of party would the trustees have? Well, yeah, it's a church work party. The parking lot and some of our grounds need some care, need some attention, in part because of the windstorm from last week. Broken branches, dirt, trash that gets blown in from other people's yards, stuff like that. So if you've got some time Saturday morning at 9, if you're in the area, I don't expect you to drive from hundreds of miles away to come do that. But if you're in the area and you have some time, probably won't take us too long. It's not that horrible, but many hands make for light work. But Sunday is of course the big day. Sunday is worship. We have in-person worship at 8:15 and 10:45. We'd love to have you join us in person for either of those worship experiences. The 8:15, we've been doing something different, a little bit more contemporary music edge to it, even though some of them are traditional hymns, just played differently. And the 10:45 is just, is a straight up traditional, what we've always done here, not high church, somewhere in between. But if you want to try something different, come to one that's different than what you normally worship at. Of course, if you can't be in person, again, we'd love to have you come join us at 10:45 right here on Facebook, YouTube, or the website. Now, extra special on Sunday, multiple extra specials on Sunday. We have two missionaries that we've supported joining us for both worships. They are Mark Zimmerman, who is a missionary through the Global Board of the General Board of Global Ministries, and has been in Nepal for a number of years, working in a hospital there. He is a physician, and I believe he was like chief of the physicians or whatever there at the hospital. Pretty good job, and important, and doing great work. But his time as a missionary there has come to an end. Technically, I believe it's until January 1st or something like that. But he'll be doing something different. He's actually going to become a licensed local pastor, and he's currently working through that process in the United Methodist Church, which is wonderful. And I believe he said he's going to be going up to New England to put that license into practice. So that's also wonderful. Good for him, good for them. Excuse me. Not sure what his wife is doing, because Deidre was also serving as a missionary, working as a dietitian and helping folks with nutrition in Nepal. The other missionary who will be joining us is Marion Hartman. Now, Marion is a retired pastor in the Susquehanna Conference, in our conference, still works some. She's an assistant for the bishops, works for them, important work, and works in connection with the Board of Ordained Ministry. Marion is wonderful. She's a great personality, wonderful preacher, and all that kind of stuff. She's also very passionate about missions, and in particular the people of Mexico. And she's been working with Give Ye Them to Eat, which is a mission in Mexico, set up by Nan Gertie, I believe was her name, McGurdy. And Marion goes there at least once a year, and they do a variety of things. And we have chosen to recently assist her mission, the mission Give You Them to Eat. We've sent some money to that through the conference. So Marion's going to be here for that reason. So during worship, we're going to be doing something neat. Going to be doing like an interview. I'm going to interview them, and they're going to actually interview me at the same time. A little bit of question and answer kind of stuff. Fun, something different. That'll be at both 8:15 and 10:45. In between worship, from 9:30 to 10:30, usually the Sunday school hour. Each of them is going to take about a half an hour to talk more in depth about missions and about their missions in particular, to share stuff and to answer any questions that anyone might have about them. So we encourage you to participate, to come out for that. If you normally come to the 8:15 worship, stay for that, or if you normally come for the 10:45, come early. I have to change that announcement. And also Sunday, of course, is the church picnic. Church picnic will be taking place after the 10:45 worship, and that's at Otterbein Park on Wilty Road here in town. So I'd love to have folks join us there as well. Anyway, lots of talking. 9:14. Goodness gracious. All right, let's get into it, right? We're at chapter 10. So chapter 9 started telling us about all the great, glorious things. The temple's built, the house is built, all this stuff is built. So now we're talking about the vastness of the glory of Solomon's reign. Might remember to keep almost tongue-in-cheek for this. The author or editors, kind of setting up for a fall, perhaps. The classic Greek tragedy, in Greek drama, is described in two ways, as comedy and tragedy. And you've probably seen the masks, right? And why do we have those masks? Well, that's how actors put those masks in front of their faces, and then you knew if it was a comedy or a tragedy based on the fact that it was a smile or a frown. Well, it's more than that. That actually describes a comedy or a tragedy. And comedy isn't always funny, but a comedy, the main character usually starts off high, shall we say, and then something happens to create a fall. But then the fortunes turn around and it comes back up, and he ends up high again, usually actually higher than he was at the start. So it's a comedy, which looks like a smile. Tragedy is the exact opposite. A tragedy, person starts off low, typically low, and we see a build, wonderful, great, amazing things, and then there's a precipitous fall. We might be seeing the setup for a tragedy with Solomon or with Israel because of Solomon. Solomon's playing a part in it. As we're being described, all this glory and grandeur and the wonderful things that are taking place. And, well, what's going to happen next? All right. Chapter 10 basically continues this kind of story. When the Queen of Sheba heard of the fame of Solomon, due to the name of Yahweh, she came to test him with hard questions. Pause. Which hard questions? This can very easily be seen as a diplomatic meeting, a political meeting, and some of those hard questions Could be related to expansion of kingdoms and trade agreements and all that kind of stuff. Those could be hard questions. She came to Jerusalem with a very great retinue, with camels bearing spices and very much gold and precious stones. And when she came to Solomon, she told him all that was on her mind. Solomon answered all her questions. There was nothing hidden from the king that he could not explain to her. When the queen of Sheba had observed all the wisdom of Solomon, the house that he had built, the food of his table, the seating of his officials, and the attendance of his servants, their clothing, his valets, and his burnt offerings that he offered at the house of the Lord, of Yahweh, there was no more spirit in her. Pause. The NRSV translates it, there's no more spirit in her. The NIV says she was overwhelmed. Possibly the best translation from the Hebrew is, it took her breath away. It took her breath away. Remember, spirit and breath are the same Hebrew word, the same word in Hebrew. There was no more breath in her. She was breathless. She was left breathless by the grandeur and by Solomon's statements. So she said to the king, the report was true that I heard in my own land of your accomplishments and of your wisdom. But I did not believe the reports until I came and my own eyes had seen it. Not even half had been told me. Your wisdom and prosperity far surpassed the report that I had heard. Happy are your wives. Pause. NIV translates it as happy are your officials. Or happy are your men, I should say, happy are your men. It's because we don't really know what the Hebrew word means. It could be, it's weird, but it could be wives or men. Happy are these your servants who continually attend you and hear your wisdom. Blessed be Yahweh, your God, who has delighted in you and set you on the throne of Israel. Because Yahweh loved Israel forever, he has made you king to execute justice and righteousness. Then she gave the king 120 talents of gold, a great quantity of spices and precious stones. Never again did spices come in such quantity as that which the queen of Sheba gave to King Solomon. Pause. I should have said we don't really know where Sheba was, but it's often thought of as an African nation. No, probably North African, but could be somewhere mid or south. We're not 100% sure. That scholars differ in their exact opinion of where it might have been. And wanted 120 talents of gold, which is about 25 tons. Oh no, 4.5 tons. 4.5 tons of gold. Quite a bit of gold. Now notice, well, we'll get there. Continuing, verse 11. Moreover, the fleet of Hiram, which carried gold from Ophir, brought from Ophir a great quantity of almug wood and precious stones. From the almug wood, the king made supports for the house of Yahweh. And for the king's house, lyres also, and harps for the singers. No such almug wood has come or been seen to this day. Meanwhile, King Solomon gave to the queen of Sheba every desire that she expressed, as well as what he gave her out of Solomon's royal bounty. Then she returned to her own land with her servants. Pause. Now, some read this passage here, 13. It's not there, okay? It's not there in the scripture, at least not literally. But there are people that point to this passage, including Jews in other African nations other than Israel, like Southern Africa, that one of the gifts Solomon gave the queen was pregnancy, was a child, and that she went home pregnant. He impregnated her, and that's how these other African Jewish settlements came into being, villages came into being, and their connection. And if they're not fully Jewish, they're connected to Israel, and they claim them to be descendants of Solomon. And people point to this passage here. It's not really there. So did it happen? We don't know. We're not told. It's definitely a stretch of the story. It's a stretch of what's really there, literally there in the scripture. Sorry, I just wanted to check to see if I missed anything. Nope. My phone vibrated. I wasn't sure if I was getting a text from someone. All right. The weight of gold that came to Solomon in 1 year was 666 talents of gold. That's 25 tons. Continuing, besides that which came from the traders and from the business of the merchants and from all the kings of Arabia and the governors of the land, King Solomon made 200 large shields of beaten gold. 600 shekels of gold went into each large shield. He made 300 shields of beaten gold. 3 minas of gold went into each shield, and the king put them in the house of the forest of Lebanon. The king also made a great ivory throne and overlaid it with the finest gold. The throne had 6 steps. The top of the throne was rounded in the back, and on each side of the seat were armrests and 2 lions standing beside the armrests. Pause. Why lions? Well, lions, there were lions in Israel at the time, but more specifically, the lion is kind of the symbol of Judah, the southern portion of the kingdom. So it's interesting that he chooses lions. Continuing, while 12 lions were standing, one on each end of a step on the 6 steps. Nothing like it was ever made in any kingdom. All King Solomon's drinking vessels were of gold, and all the vessels of the house of the forest of Lebanon were of pure gold. None were of silver. It was not considered as anything in the days of Solomon. For the king had a fleet of ships of Tarshish at sea with the fleet of Hiram. Once every 3 years, the fleet of ships of Tarshish used to come bringing gold, silver, ivory, apes, and peacocks. Pause. If you're following a different translation, it might say baboons. That's because we have no idea what the word means. So some translate it as peacocks, some translate it as baboons, some probably translate it as something else, but that's why that's there. But wow, right? Wow. I'm still going to hold off. I'm still going to hold off on something. But we can see the grandeur of the stuff. Keep in mind, some of this is most likely to be exaggeration. Most likely exaggeration. The author is going extra large with the story. Hyperbole, we might say. Don't read all of these numbers and stuff literally. But even if they're not literal, I mean, even if it's not 25 tons, if it's only 10 tons of gold, that's still a heck of a lot of gold, right? Probably doesn't need to be exaggerated as much as it most likely was. Picking up from there, verse 23, then thus King Solomon excelled all the kings of the earth in riches and in wisdom. The whole earth sought the presence of Solomon to hear his wisdom, which God had put into his mind. Every one of them brought a present, objects of silver and gold, garments, weaponry, spices, horses, and mules, so much year by year. Solomon gathered together chariots and horses. He had 1,400 chariots and 12,000 horses, which he stationed in the chariot cities and with the king in Jerusalem. The king made silver as common in Jerusalem as stones, and he made cedars as numerous as the sycamores of the Shephelah. Solomon's import of horses was from Egypt and Kue, and the king's traders received them from Kue at a price. A chariot could be imported from Egypt for 600 shekels of silver, and a horse for 150. So through the king's traders, they were exported to all the kings of the Hittites and the kings of Aram. End of chapter 10. Wow, right? Glorious. What's going on? Okay, what's the bad stuff? This sounds all great, doesn't it? Well, the chariots and the horses, those are weapons of war. So it's showing that Solomon is putting his trust in an army, not putting a trust in God, not putting a trust in Yahweh. He's putting a trust in weapons of war, in an army, and in those ships. So he's putting a trust in all this kind of stuff. He seems not to be having trust in Yahweh the way he was called to. Plus, where did the horses come from? Mostly Egypt. And Q, not supposed to have anything to do with Egypt. Now he's got the Pharaoh's daughter as one of his wives, and he's trading and buying horses from him at a price. What does that mean? It certainly could mean that he's overpaying even for it. He doesn't seem to care. Notice what also what is very, very missing from this whole experience: Yahweh. God is only mentioned like 2 times in this whole thing, and only by like Sheba saying, oh, that God has, the Lord your God, blessed be the Lord your God who put you here and gave you that, and talking about his wisdom, which God had given to you. But everything else seems to be about Solomon, everything that Solomon did and how great and grand everything is. Hope that makes some sense and we can perhaps see what might be happening. Well, my friends, that's it for today. That's it for today. That's it for this week. I hope this has been beneficial to you as you go about your days, not just today, but every day. Keep those eyes and ears, physical and spiritual, open to everything that our living, loving, active God is doing in your life and in the lives of those around you. When you see it, when you hear it, say, thank you, God, and tell somebody about it. Until we meet again, my friends, be blessed.